All right. Let's dive into this treasure trove of info you've given us all about diets.
It is quite the collection.
We've got one source, it's like, whoa, every diet you can
It's
imagine.
amazing.
And then the other one really breaks down the deets, which is what I think you're after, right?
I think that's where the real value is going to be for our listeners.
Totally. So should we just jump right into it?
Yeah, let's get this deep dive started.
Perfect. Okay. The keto diet, everyone's talking about it, everyone's trying it. Is it all it's cracked up to be?
Well, the keto diet is all about drastically cutting carbs, which, as you know, are a major source of energy,
Right.
and replacing them with fat. So it's very low carb, high fat.
Uh,
Basically, you're putting your body into a state called ketosis.
oh, here we go. Ketosis.
And what happens in ketosis is your body basically starts burning fat for energy instead of glucose, which it gets from carbs.
So it's like you're switching the fuel source of your body from, like, I don't know, gasoline to biodiesel or something.
Exactly. And the source mentions that this whole metabolic shift, it supposedly leads to things like faster weight loss, better blood sugar control, which is especially helpful for folks with type 2 diabetes. So yeah, there are some purported benefits.
Wow. So you're like tricking your body into becoming this fat-burning machine?
Yeah, pretty much.
But are there any, like, downsides to this whole switching things up?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And, this source, it kind of skims over the potential downsides, but you have to think, like, cutting out entire food groups, that can be tough to stick with.
Yeah, that's intense.
And you have to be careful about getting all the nutrients you need. So there are definitely some things to consider.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a decision to be made lightly.
Definitely not.
Okay. So moving on from restricting carbs, let's talk about restricting when we eat. Intermittent fasting. What's the deal with that?
Right. This one's really gained some popularity recently.
It has.
It's kind of got this, like, mystical aura around it.
Yeah, it seems very mysterious.
Right. But honestly, at its core, it's pretty straightforward. It's not so much about what you eat, but when you eat.
Mm-hmm.
So you're cycling between periods of eating and then these voluntary fasting windows. And during these fasting periods, that's when your body gets a chance to use up its stored energy.
So less about deprivation and more about strategic timing then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so walk me through some of these like fasting schedules. What does it actually look like in practice?
So one popular one that's mentioned in the source is the 16.8 method. You've probably heard of this one.
Yeah, I think so.
Basically, you're fasting for 16 hours a day. So a big chunk of that's while you're asleep, and then you have an 8-hour window to eat.
Oh, okay.
Another one is the 5.2 method, where you eat normally for 5 days and then restrict calories significantly for 2 non-consecutive days.
Interesting.
So there are a few different ways to do it.
Okay, so it's like giving your digestive system a little break.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
That's one way to put it. The source mentioned a whole bunch of benefits. What were some of the ones that stood out to you?
Well, weight loss obviously is a big one that people talk about.
Right.
But there's also some thought that it can help with things like insulin sensitivity, which is really important for managing blood sugar.
Okay.
And some even say it could help you live longer, although the research on that is still a little iffy.
Who wouldn't want to live longer? Right. But honestly, are there any like downsides though? Because fasting for that long, that can't be for everyone.
No, definitely not. It can be tough.
Yeah.
Some people, they experience fatigue, headaches, trouble concentrating.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and if you have any health conditions, you really want to talk to a doctor first. That's essential.
Always good advice. Okay. So speaking of ancient practices, let's talk about the paleo diet, the caveman diet. Eating like our hunter-gatherer ancestors. What's the deal with this one?
Yeah, so the paleo diet basically says that our bodies are best suited for the types of foods that our ancestors were eating back in the Paleolithic era.
Okay.
So that means lots of lean meats, fish, fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, basically whole, unprocessed foods, things you could hunt or gather.
So like a real back to basics approach.
Yeah.
What are the like claimed benefits of, embracing our inner cave dweller?
Well, some people claim that it helps you lose weight, and there are some potential benefits for blood sugar control and inflammation as well.
Okay.
The idea is that processed foods, grains, dairy, refined sugars, all that stuff that our ancestors weren't eating, That's what's messing us up.
Interesting. But I have to imagine it's got to be pretty difficult to eat like a caveman when you're living in the modern world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, it's pretty restrictive, right? So that can be tough to stick with long term.
Mhm.
Plus, you're cutting out entire food groups like dairy and grains. So you got to be super careful about getting the nutrients you need from other sources. And honestly, we don't even know for sure if this is what our ancestors were really eating.
Right, because who's to say they wouldn't have, like, snuck in a croissant if they had the
That's-
chance?
Exactly. We'll never know.
We'll never know. All right, so from the Paleolithic era to the sunny Mediterranean, let's talk about the Mediterranean diet. Now, this one always seemed more like a lifestyle than a diet.
I think you're right on the money with that one.
Okay,
It really is more about a way of life than a set of strict rules.
so paint me a picture. I'm sitting by the agency. What's on my plate?
Lots of colorful vegetables,
Okay.
fresh fruits, hearty whole grains, protein from things like legumes, healthy fats from nuts and seeds, olive oil, obviously.
Suppose it's the Mediterranean.
Right. And then you've got fish as a staple.
Okay.
And things like dairy, poultry, eggs, those are all included in moderation.
Right.
But red meat, sweets, those are more like special occasion foods.
Okay, so it's all about balance. Enjoying delicious food without going overboard. I mean, who wouldn't want to eat like that?
Wow.
But besides the whole, Mediterranean lifestyle, are there actual like health benefits to this way of eating?
Oh, yeah, big time. The Mediterranean diet is constantly being linked to a lower risk of all sorts of good things.
Mhm.
Heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, even some types of cancer.
Wow.
And it's not just physical health either.
Really?
Yeah, some studies suggest it could be good for your brain too, like better cognitive function and maybe even a lower risk of Alzheimer's.
No kidding. What is it about this diet that makes it so good for us?
Probably a lot of things working together, but olive oil, definitely a superstar here. It's full of monounsaturated fats, antioxidants, those are great for your heart. And then all the fruits, vegetables, legumes, they're packed with vitamins, minerals, fiber,
Right.
and antioxidants that help fight inflammation.
That makes sense. It really does sound like a holistic approach to health and well-being, which I love. Are there any downsides, though? Or is it all?
I mean, as with any diet, you have to be mindful of how many calories you're eating, especially with all the olive oil and nuts. Those are calorie dense.
Yeah.
And it's always a good idea to check in with your doctor or a registered dietitian, especially if you have any health conditions. You want to make sure it's the right fit for you.
Yeah. That's always good advice. It's always best to err on the side of caution. Speaking of food choices, let's talk about high-protein diets. Always a popular choice, especially for fitness buffs. What's the deal with all that protein?
Well, as you can imagine, with high-protein diets, it's all about, prioritizing protein.
Makes sense.
It's a building block for muscle, so these diets are really popular with people who are looking to build muscle, improve their body composition, things like that.
So we're talking protein shakes, chicken breasts, egg whites, all that good stuff.
Pretty much. You'll definitely see those on a high-protein diet. But it's not just those things. You've got lean meats, fish, tofu, legumes, even low-fat dairy. It's about getting enough protein to help your body repair and build muscle tissue. And because protein keeps you feeling full, it can be really helpful for managing weight, too.
Right. It's way more satisfying than, like, a bag of chips.
Exactly.
The source we're looking at, it talks about all these benefits of upping your protein intake. What were some of the big ones?
Well, we already touched on muscle growth and repair.
Right.
That's huge, especially if you're working out a lot. And then there's the satiety factor, which I mentioned earlier, like it can help you feel fuller for longer, so you're less likely to overeat.
Okay.
And this is why it's so popular with athletes, bodybuilders, anyone looking to, get those gains.
It's like the fuel for those gains.
Exactly.
But I imagine, like, too much of a good thing can backfire. What are the potential downsides here?
Totally. Like with anything, you got to be careful.
Oh.
Some people, they get digestive issues when they eat too much protein.
Oh, no.
And if you have any kind of kidney problems, it's really important to talk to your doctor before you, go all in on protein.
Moderation, right.
Always a good rule of thumb.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the plant-based diet. This one's been getting more and more popular. What's the lowdown?
The plant-based diet is all about, you guessed it, plants.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking fruits, vegetables, legumes, grains, nuts, seeds, all that good stuff.
It's like tapping into nature's bounty.
Exactly. And it's really flexible. Some people go full-on vegan, no animal products at all.
Mm-hmm.
Others might be vegetarian, so maybe they include eggs, dairy, It's really about finding what works best for you and
Yeah.
what aligns with your values.
I love that. It's very personal. What are some of the the perks of eating more plant-based?
Oh, tons of potential
Yeah.
benefits. Lower risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers.
Wow.
Plants are full of fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants.
Right, they're nutrient powerhouses.
Exactly. All that good stuff helps protect your cells from damage, and that's what contributes to overall well-being.
It's incredible how what's good for us is often good for the planet too.
It's true.
But like any diet, there must be some things to watch out for.
Hmm.
What do people need to be aware of if they're thinking of going more plant-based?
Yeah, it's not quite as simple as just swapping out your burger for a veggie burger.
Okay.
You really have to be mindful about getting all the nutrients that you might be missing out on if you're not eating animal products.
Like what?
Things like vitamin B12, iron,
Mhm.
omega-3 fatty acids, those can be a little trickier to get enough of on a plant-based diet,
Okay.
but it's totally doable with a bit of planning and maybe some supplementation if needed.
So it's doable, it just takes a little extra effort.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about a program that's synonymous with weight loss. Weight Watchers. It's a classic. I feel like everyone knows someone who's tried it.
It's true. It's been around forever,
It has.
and they've really evolved over the years. They're not just about dieting anymore. It's more about building healthy habits that you can actually stick with.
So it's not just like counting calories and deprivation all the time.
No, definitely not. They have this point system, so each food and drink gets assigned a certain number of points based on its nutritional value.
Okay.
And then you get a personalized points budget for the day. So it's really about making healthier choices within that budget. It's about flexibility and balance.
So it's not overly restrictive.
Not necessarily, no. It's more about making conscious choices.
What would you say are some of the pros of the WW program?
I think one of the biggest benefits is the support system. They have those workshops, right?
You're right, right.
And the online platform so you can connect with other people who are on the same journey, share your experiences,
Yeah.
get advice from coaches, other members. That sense of community could be super motivating.
Yeah, there's something really powerful about knowing you're not alone in it, right?
Exactly. It makes a huge difference.
Are there any downsides? Or is it, is it all rainbows and butterflies over there at WW?
Well, I mean, no diet is perfect, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I think with WW, like any program, success really depends on the individual's commitment.
Right.
You got to be willing to put in the effort.
Yeah.
And while the point system is supposed to be flexible, some people do find it a bit restrictive.
Okay.
It's also important to make sure you're still focusing on nutrient-dense foods.
Right.
Not just trying to stay within your points by eating a bunch of processed stuff, even if it fits.
Right. It's all about those good for you foods. Okay. So we've gone from fairly moderate to now, let's talk about something a little more, extreme. The carnivore diet. It's exactly what it sounds like.
Mhm.
Meat, meat, and more meat.
This one is definitely not for the faint of heart.
No.
It's about as restrictive as it gets.
Mm.
Only animal products. So we're talking meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and maybe some high-fat dairy. That's it.
No fruits, vegetables, no grains, nothing.
Nope, off the table.
Wow. That is restrictive. So what's the thinking behind this? Why would someone choose to eat like this?
Well, the basic idea is that humans, way back when, they thrived on an all-meat diet.
Okay.
And some people believe that we're still kind of wired that way.
Interesting.
They say that animal products are just more nutrient-dense,
Okay.
and that this way of eating can lead to weight loss, better blood sugar control. Some even say it can help with certain health conditions.
So there's a method to the madness.
I guess so.
I have to ask, though, ditching fruits and vegetables entirely, that seems pretty risky, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not something I would recommend without talking to a doctor first.
Okay, good to know.
There are some pretty serious concerns about nutrient deficiencies
Right.
and long-term health risks because you're missing out on so many important vitamins, minerals, and fiber that you just can't get from animal products alone.
So definitely approach that one with caution.
Extreme caution.
Okay. From one extreme to something a bit more straightforward. Calorie-restricted diets. Eat less, move more. Is that the basic gist?
Pretty much. The idea is to create a calorie deficit. So you're taking in fewer calories than you're burning, and that forces your body to start using up its stored energy, which is fat.
So it's a simple equation in theory, right?
In theory, yes. But, our bodies are a little more complicated than that.
Of course, they always are.
It's not quite as simple as just slashing your calories and calling it a day.
So how do you do it right then?
I mean, there are so many different calorie counting apps, methods out there. It can feel overwhelming.
It really can.
The best thing to do is talk to a registered dietitian.
Okay.
They can help you figure out exactly how many calories you should be eating based on your age, gender, how active you are, what your goals are.
So it's personalized.
Totally. Everyone's different. What works for one person won't necessarily work for another.
Makes sense. Okay. And what about medical weight loss? What falls under that category?
Medical weight loss is basically when you're working with a healthcare professional to lose weight, and they're using evidence-based strategies.
Okay.
So it's not just, here's a generic diet plan, go forth and conquer. It's much more personalized than that. They're looking at your medical history, your lifestyle, your weight loss goals.
So it's the opposite of one size fits all.
Exactly. And they might use different strategies depending on what's right for you. So it could be nutrition counseling, behavioral therapy, medication,
Okay.
in some cases even surgery, but that's obviously
Yeah.
more complex.
Yeah, more intense. What would you say are some of the biggest advantages of going the medical route for weight loss?
I think, number one is you're getting expert guidance,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've got someone who really knows their stuff and can tailor a plan specifically for you.
Okay.
They can also help you figure out if there are any underlying medical conditions that might be contributing to your weight.
That's so important.
It's not always as simple as just calories in, calories out.
Yeah, right. There's so much more to it. Okay, let's talk about a category that always seems to be shrouded in a bit of mystery. Fasting and detox diets. Are they legit?
This is one of those areas where there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah.
So fasting, which is basically abstaining from food or certain foods and drinks for a period of time, that can actually have some health benefits, but you have to do it safely.
Okay.
And under the right guidance. Don't just decide to stop eating for a week without talking to a doctor first.
Got it.
Detox diets are a little trickier. Our bodies are actually amazing at detoxing on their own.
They are.
We've got our liver, kidneys, our digestive system. They're all working hard to filter out toxins and waste products.
So we don't really need these crazy detox diets.
For most people, no.
Okay.
It's much more important to just focus on living a healthy lifestyle overall.
Right. So eating a balanced diet, getting enough exercise, staying hydrated, managing stress, that kind of thing.
Those are the real detoxifiers.
I love it. Okay, so switching gears now to folks who have specific dietary needs. What about diets for allergies and illnesses?
So this is a broad category, but it basically covers any diet that's designed to address specific nutritional needs or restrictions.
Okay.
So, for example, someone with celiac disease, they have to follow a gluten-free diet, right?
Right.
Because gluten triggers an immune response that damages their small intestine. Someone with diabetes has to be really careful about managing their carbohydrate intake to keep their blood sugar levels stable.
So it's all about working with your body,
Exactly.
not against it.
And this is where it becomes super crucial to work with a healthcare professional.
Right.
Because you want to make sure you're getting the right nutrients and you're not putting your health at risk by restricting things that you don't need to restrict.
It's about that personalized approach.
100%.
Okay. Let's talk about something that's often marketed as a quick fix. Diet pills and supplements. Is there any truth to the hype?
Oh, the world of diet pills and supplements is a tricky one.
It really is.
There are so many products out there, and they all promise the world.
I know.
And the truth is, some of them might offer a tiny little bit of benefit,
Okay.
but only if you're also living a healthy lifestyle. You can't just pop a pill and expect to lose weight without doing any of the work.
So there's no magic bullet.
I'm afraid not.
Huh.
And you've really got to be careful because a lot of these products, they make these outrageous claims, and there's often little to no scientific evidence to back them up.
So buyer beware.
Buyer beware, for sure. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
That's good advice for life in general.
It really is.
Okay, what about diet clothing? Are we talking like magical slimming garments here?
Pretty much. So these are clothes that are designed to make you look slimmer.
Okay.
So think Spanx, compression garments, those kinds of things. They might make you feel more confident, which is great,
Right.
but they're not actually doing anything to change your body composition.
Right. It's more about the appearance,
Exactly.
not about actual lasting weight loss.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about diet aids and tools? What falls into this category?
So these are kind of like your trusty sidekicks on your health journey.
I like that.
They can be really helpful for staying motivated, staying organized.
Give me some examples.
We're talking meal prep containers, portion control plates, maybe a kitchen scale so you can actually measure out your food, fitness trackers, calorie counting apps, all that good stuff.
It's like having a toolkit for weight loss.
Exactly. And they can make a big difference.
For sure. Okay, last but not least, what about the role of personal trainers and, you know, those boutique fitness studios that are popping up everywhere? Are they worth it?
I think so.
Yeah.
If you can swing it financially, they can be a game changer.
Okay.
A good trainer,
Mm-hmm.
they can give you that personalized guidance,
Right.
create a workout plan that's tailored to your body, your goals, make sure you're using proper form so you don't hurt yourself.
Right.
And they just provide that extra accountability that some people really need to stay on track.
It's like having a cheerleader in your corner.
Exactly. Someone who's there to support you every step of the way.
It's so true. Having that support can make all the difference, especially when you're making big changes. So we've covered a ton of ground here.
We really have.
It's amazing how many different approaches there are to something as basic as food.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you how much we're still learning about nutrition and how our bodies work.
Right. Like what works for one person might not work for someone else at all.
Exactly.
Out of all the diets that we talked about, is there anything that really stood out to you? Like any big takeaways?
You know, I think the biggest thing for me is that there's no magic bullet.
Yeah, there never is there?
Nope.
No matter what the latest fad diet is promising.
Right. And honestly, a lot of these diets we talked about, they can be kind of tough to follow.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are super restrictive,
Totally.
and I just don't think that's realistic or even healthy for most people long term.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And for most people, that means a balanced approach.
So no extreme makeovers for your plate.
No, definitely not. It's about making sustainable changes that you can actually stick with.
What else? What else should people keep in mind?
I think it's so important to, be your own advocate.
What do you mean?
Do your research. Talk to your doctor. Talk to a registered dietitian.
Okay.
Don't just jump on the bandwagon of the latest fad diet because everyone else is doing it.
Or because some influencer is promoting it on Instagram.
Especially not then. Remember, everyone is different. We all have different bodies, different goals, different lifestyles. What works for your best friend might not work for you.
Totally. It's about tuning out the noise and figuring out what your body needs.
Exactly. Listen to your body.
It all comes back to that, doesn't it?
It really does.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, and hopefully our listeners have too.
Me too. It's been a pleasure chatting with you about all things diet.
Likewise. And for anyone listening, remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole world of information out there. So keep learning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep nourishing your body in a way that feels good for you. That's what really matters at the end of the day. Until next time.